Hello and welcome once again to the Cup Experience, our pre-race show covering all the details of the 36th America's Cup. This is show number 5, day number 5 of the Prada Cup Challenger Selection Series. I am Tucker Thompson, broadcasting live here in the U.S. I'm joined by Jack Griffin of thecupexperience.com. He's in Switzerland. Jack, hello. This racing has been exciting. It's kept us guessing. We now have a finalist, Ineos Team UK. They won the round robin, so they go straight to the finals. Tonight begins the semifinals between the American team, American Magic, and the Italian team, Luna, Rossa, Prada, Pirelli.
Yeah, this series is win or go home. Prada has had some struggles on the race course. American Magic had a broken boat that they got back out on the race course. The surprises are going to keep on coming.
It's been a fantastic series so far, and there's lots more to come. And before we get into the show, we begin with the sponsor 60. 60 seconds to thank those who make our show possible, beginning with Mount Gay Rum. Mount Gay Rum is the sailor's rum. And let's find them. There we are. Mount Gay Rum, the Sailor's Rum, the official rum of American Magic as well. You can check out our new video that we just posted last week with Mount Gay on YouTube and Facebook. And, of course, order your own rum at drizzly.com. Also, send us photos of you guys drinking rum and having an America's Cup watch party. We'll put you right in the show. Thanks to C-Deck adhesive foam decking, which will literally transform the deck of your boat. It did for mine, and of course it has for American Magic as well. We'd like to thank AkzoNobel and their All Grip Fast Finishes. American Magic's finish with the All Grip Next Generation Top Coat called HDT, and clearly it's fast. Also, thanks to Robba and Birking Silver, the American Magic collection includes cocktail tumblers, bottle coasters, serving trays, all with the American Magic logo, and proceeds, some of which will go to the team. They certainly could use everybody's help to get back into the competition. And you can also customize these with your own boat name or whatever you want on the silver. You can ask Jack for more info or order them at americanmagic.cupexperience.com. And finally, thanks to Pellini Coffee, the official coffee supplier of New York Yacht Club American Magic, with their Pellini Top 100% Arabica Espresso. Pellini Coffee, keeping American Magic energized. You can find it online at amazon.com. So now let's get right into it. We saw round robin 4, or day number 4 of the round robins concluded last week. Here's a look at how the highlights went down in that racing.
There was plenty at stake in the match between Luna Rossa and Ineos, and if the tension surrounding this race wasn't enough, the weather was about to add to it. A shifting breeze forced the race committee to delay for almost an hour until conditions settled. Then, as racing got close, another issue. Ineos Team UK had a problem with the Cunningham, one of the key controls for the mainsail.
Race committee, we would like to request a delay, please.
Ineos Team UK, we copy that, and we'll add a 15-minute delay to the start clock, making the new start time 17:15.
Unable to fix it, they were forced to lock the control off, effectively losing one or more gear changes. But that didn't stop both from going flat out in the pre-start. The breeze was up, 20 knots and still shifty. As the pair came together, more hints as to how this race would shape up. Fast and close. At gate 1, Ineos led by 2 seconds. By the bottom, it was 9. On the next lap, Luna Rossa had taken the lead by 19 seconds at the top and 10 at the bottom. But then things got really tight. On the last lap, Ineos were leading by just 1 second at gate 5. On the approach to the finish, a final roll of the dice by Luna Rossa. But it was rejected by the umpires. Ineos Team UK had taken the win, 5 out of 5, and had sealed their passage to the Prada Cup final.
Oh, look, it's a great moment for the team because we've obviously had a tough start, a tough build-up to this competition. So I'm incredibly proud of everyone. That said, we know we've still got a long way to go in this road. So whilst we've got ourselves into the Prada Cup final, it's just one step along the road, and now we've got to focus on trying to win that. And then after that, the Cup. So one step at a time.
Well, Jack, what did we learn from watching those races? Well, first of all, Ineos Team UK is impressive, undefeated so far. But that was one of the best races we have seen with 9 lead changes, certainly one of the closest races overall.
Oh, the racing started off surprising us by how good it was, and it just keeps getting better. I mean, that was, Ben Ainsley said that was one of the best sailboat races of any kind he's ever been in. And for us, the spectators, the lead changes, and that was lead changes. Partly there were a couple of, maybe fluffed tacks by Luna Rossa, but there was also some great sailing by both teams. Yeah. No breakdowns once they got going. Super stuff.
Now, speaking of breakdowns, let's talk about Ineos Team UK. Before we get to the issue that they had, which made their win all the more impressive, they are the form team. They went into this event, everybody questioned how they would do. All of a sudden, they are completely undefeated, and the other teams are playing catch-up. It's amazing. What is Ineos Team UK doing?
One thing is that they have a super, super strong team. They figured out that in the America's Cup World Series in December, that they had a problem. They didn't get rattled. They went to work. The designers made some changes. The shore crew implemented them, and they came out swinging, undefeated in the Prada Cup so far. Phenomenal performance.
Those changes, Jack, definitely worked. Here we saw some footage of last week's race. This is a breakdown that they were given time to repair. What was that about?
Well, they lost their Cunningham control. The grinders were the ones who figured it out because they saw in their display that it was calling for hydraulic pressure. The Cunningham could not be used in an adjustable way, so they had to guess what was going to be the wind strength, lock it off in a position that was optimum for that. But they, as Matt Sheehan said in his video, they lost a couple of gear changes. That's one of the main ways to shift the power in the rig. And they sailed the race without it and won anyway.
All the more impressive. Not only have they made lots of changes to their boat, but as you say, they had to lock the Cunningham off. And you heard Kenny Reed in the broadcast talk about how much load and tension was on that one setting, how important it is in these AC-75s. So they were hindered downwind, possibly one reason why we saw a lot of those lead changes. But the last lead went to Ineos Team UK, and they sealed the deal. So they move on straight to the finals of the Prada Cup. Now, another issue that a lot of people have been zeroing in on is the tactics that are going on every single team, particularly Ineos Team UK. They're doing it differently with Giles Scott, the sole tactician. He's not doing anything else on board. He's free to roam around. The question is that the fastest setup? Clearly, according to the results, we guess it is. But also, what are the other teams doing? So this next section is all about you, Jack. It's called Ask Jack. You can go on to cupexperience.com and ask Jack a question, and he will answer it right here in the show. It's sponsored by Seahorse Magazine. Let's have a look.
Hi, I'm Jack Griffin. Today, let's talk about the tactician's role. 4 teams, 4 different answers to this question. Let's look first at American Magic. Here they are in a maneuver. Helmsman Dean Barker is crossing behind the mainsail over to the starboard side. That's Paul Goodison on the wheel right now. Dean will take the wheel from Paul. Paul will go back to his duties as the mainsail trimmer. Let's look at American Magic from overhead. Notice that all the way forward on the starboard side is Andrew Campbell, the flight controller. He stays there in the entire race. He doesn't change sides. After Andrew, working our way aft, we've got the grinders, and then the helmsman's position, and Goody on mainsail trim is behind the helmsman. On the port side, look at the grinding team. The aftmost grinder is skipper Terry Hutchinson. He's also the tactician. Looking around, here's Andrew Campbell. He does some of the tactics as well because he's all the way forward on starboard. Now let's have a look on the other side of the boat. Here's Terry Hutchinson grinding away. He has one tough job. Now let's take a look at them in a race. Let's take a look at a maneuver and see how this works. This is their race against Luna Rossa, where they've just come around the windward gate. They're going to do a dive for us here. And we'll hear from Andrew Campbell on tactics. Goodison crosses.
Anytime.
Says he's ready.
One down.
Barker drops the board, now he'll start the turn.
My wheel.
I think he has to follow from... E-Jives coming behind us, right turn.
Copy. Staying up is good here to stay with pressure.
Listen to Campbell.
Just
Check 3 goes out behind you now.
Terry has to turn around to look, grind with one hand.
Just fine. Yeah. We need the power here.
Dean calls for power, and Terry has to go like a madman on the handles. That's one way to do it. Let's take a look at Luna Rossa. They're the only team with 2 helmsmen. When you're not helming, you're the flight controller and doing some tactics. Right here we have Keko Bruni on the helm. Jimmy Spithill on starboard is doing flight control. And Pietro Sabello, the mainsail trimmer, is the only guy on Luna Rossa who changes sides. Now let's take a look at how you do flight control. Here we are. Here's Keko Bruni. Keko has some buttons to do boards up and down. And for his left hand, he's got a slider switch that we show here. That's what he's using to control laps. Obviously, none of the other teams has the helmsman doing tactics and flight control and helming. Ineos Team UK, yet another solution. For them, all of the grinders are all the way forward. They have a flight controller on each side, and none of the grinders and neither of the flight controllers changes sides. The guys who change sides, Ben Ainsley, the helmsman, Bledden Mon, the mainsail trimmer, and Giles Scott steers through the turns while Ainsley is crossing the boat. But other than that, his job is to just keep his head out of the boat and do the tactics. This seems to be a great solution. They went undefeated in the round robin. Now, what about the defender? Team New Zealand, yet again, another solution. They have 3 guys who change sides, but their guys changing sides go around the mast. What we see here is Pete Burling has just come back to the cockpit where he's going to jump in and take the helm. Blair Tuke is forward by the mast. He's going to get into the flight controller's cockpit. Like Andrew Campbell, he's all the way forward, but he changes sides during the maneuvers and can do flight control from either side of the boat. Who's steering the boat? That's Glenn Ashby. Let's take a look. What's going on in their cockpits? Well, here's Blair at his flight controller station, and on the other side of the boat, here's Glenn Ashby. He's actually steering. Pete has jumped in behind him. That's Pete's right hand reaching over Glenn. He's going to take the wheel, and Glenn will hop out, cross back over to the leeward side of the boat. We think what's happening is that Glenn is handling the power in the mainsail. So he's got the outhaul, the Cunningham, and the twist control with the main sheet. We think that Pete is handling the Traveler a lot like in a dinghy. It will be really interesting to see which of these solutions is the winning combination. Thanks for your attention. If you've got any questions, go to cupexperience.com, click the Ask Jack button, and stay in touch. Thanks.
Jack, great job with that. Looking at the differences on board, and a lot of people have been analyzing this in the media. No one really knows for sure what works, what doesn't. But coming out of that Ask Jack segment, what do you think is a better setup? And let's assume that Ineos Team UK is doing it correctly because they're undefeated. So by definition, we'll leave them as the benchmark team. We don't really know how the Kiwis are going to do, presumably well. So looking at our 2 teams that are racing tonight, how do you compare the 2 tactically?
Well, the first thing is I have such great admiration for Terry Hutchinson. He's the oldest guy on the boat, and he's on the handles and working like a madman on the handles. He's got some help from Andrew Cunningham. I think it's very smart that they have him up forward there where he's able to see what's going on, at least on the starboard side of the boat.
Andrew Campbell.
Andrew Campbell,
yeah.
Our flight controller. Luna Rossa. Well, Jimmy and Keko are both great tacticians. They're both great helmsmen. But they're also having to be flight controllers. 3 different tasks for each of those guys. They are talented. Let's see if they can turn that combination into a win. But boy, I'll tell you, the boats are tough to sail, and this way of handling tactics looks difficult for both of these 2 teams to me.
Both of them, as you say, are handling it differently, and they're also sharing responsibilities, as you pointed out in your segment. So other than Ineos, each tactician has other roles, which certainly makes it harder, and they can't see below the main boom, so they have to split things side to side. This is unlike anything any conventional sailing has seen before. I had a chance to ask Terry Hutchinson what he thinks of the way different teams are handling the tactics, including their own. Here's a look.
On board our boat, Andrew and I cover the starboard and port side of the boat and feed the information back to Dean. And I think on I don't know really what happens on Luna Rossa. By looking at it, you'd say they're set up to have Jimmy cover one side and Kiko cover the other side.
And what I thought was really funny about that, Jack, is that Terry said, I don't really have any idea what Luna Rossa is doing.
Well, on the one hand, everybody is got enough on their plate that they can't pay attention too much, but it is a little bit mysterious. How are they doing the tactics? Vasco Vascotto, who's on the team in the Brain Trust on shore, was quoted in an article saying, we don't do tactics on these boats. We set it up before the race, and then you just go. They're so fast. Interesting.
Jack, what's more important? Power on board, like American Magic with multiple grinders, or tactics like Ineos's situation where they're actually foregoing a couple grinders to keep people like Giles Scott free looking out of the boat?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta, I think it's just such a strength to have Giles able to look around. The only thing that he has to do besides the tactics is steer while Ben is crossing the boat. But that just really seems like a smart thing to do. And you're right, they have less grinder power, but they're still doing the maneuvers.
If I were another team, I'd take a look at that. But then the hard question is, can you make a change this late in the game, or do you stick with the way you've set things up? Luna Rossa certainly has a situation that I don't think they're going to modify. Two of the best helmsmen in the world sharing both sides, Francesco Bruni on port and Jimmy Spithill, two-time America's Cup winner on starboard. This next segment will take a look at another topic in the division of labor, and that's communication. That's key to tactics. It's key to everything on board. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Here's a look at how things go aboard Luna Rossa. This is brought to us by Mozzie Sails.
Two really evenly matched boats, and personally, I think it was just two fluff tacks which really killed the Italians. So let's have a look at what went wrong, what they did differently, and especially think about the communication chain on board. So port tack, Bruni's helming, and he calls, happy to lee bow.
Yep.
Stand by.
Okay, so this is where it gets a little bit different. Jimmy Spithill says stand by, and that means he's initiating the call, which in some ways makes sense because Jimmy's got a sight of Ineos, so he can time the tack perfectly for the lee bow. But let's have a look. That's not what happens.
Easy. 3, 2, 1. Board down. Board down.
So there you hear it. Jimmy counts them in. 3, 2, 1. Board down. Now, here's the crunch. Jimmy's calling the tack, but it's the helmsman on the windward side who has to press the button for the board to go down. So there's a communication chain there across the boat for that tack timing. Normally, Luna Rossa's helmsman on the windward side, who is also dropping the board, calls the tack, so you can get perfect timing on that board drop.
For trouble with speed. Got to get the board down earlier.
And there, we hear it directly from Jimmy himself. They're struggling for speed and they've got to get the board down earlier. It's a board drop timing issue.
Stand by. Stand by.
Okay, again, Jimmy Spitthill's initiating the tack, and that kind of makes sense because he's got the best view of Ineos who are crossing on starboard, and he says stand by to tack. Bruni repeats stand by. So kind of so far so good.
3, 2, you go.
Okay, and there we have it. The communication just fell apart to shit in a second there. Jimmy started the countdown. Keko Bruni took over with a number 2. Then Jimmy Spithill kind of was thrown by it.
Go, pick it.
And then the communication chain just ends with this kind of very timid go, Keko, go from Jimmy. Completely mistimed. The board again is late going down and it's just a crap tack. Lets Ineos sail in below, and in such a tight race, these were two pivotal moments where again Luna Rossa's two helms kind of was their Achilles heel.
I like what those guys are doing on Mozzie's Sails. They do a lot of analytical video about the current America's Cup. So thanks to them, specifically Tom Lewis, Rob Gullen, and Tom Partington. Those are the guys that are bringing you Mozzie sales. They do a really good job, Jack, I think, of drilling down into the details of what's going on board the boats. And that was a very clear example of a breakdown in communication aboard Luna Rossa that resulted in boat handling problems, that resulted in lead changes. Do you agree?
Oh, man, for sure. You're trying to connect too many brains together. What I mean by that is Jimmy and Keko have to be thinking as if it's just one brain. Look at what's going on New Zealand, where you've got Pete can do the traveler and he can do the steering. He doesn't need to connect to anybody else to do that. On board Ineos, you've got Giles, who's giving info to Ben. Ben's making the decisions. And Ineos has one other thing, which is they have 2 flight controllers, the only boat with 2 flight controllers who don't have other duties. You know, Jimmy and Keko are flight controllers, but they have other duties too. But that really gives them an advantage.
Well, it gives them an advantage in being able to call tactics, I think, and drive the boat without ever leaving the helm. The disadvantage, though, is obviously in who does what when. You have 2 Type A helmsmen, 2 leaders, 2 people who are control the boat half the time. And that video, I think, very clearly showed not only a communication breakdown, which maybe they'll fix coming into this next round, but also, I think, a bit of a personality conflict. I think Jimmy clearly wants to be the alpha dog. And even when he's not driving, he's telling Keko when to drop the board, get ready to tack. And as you heard the Aussie sales guys say, the helmsman's supposed to be doing that. Then when Keko takes over, Jimmy sort of backs up. It's not ideal, obviously. And that resulted in bad tacks. It resulted in Ineos catching up. So I think it's sort of a control and a leadership issue. Who's in charge? Who's the leader? Who's making the calls?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And again, those guys on Luna Rossa, each one of them has 3 jobs. I've got to steer. I've got to do flight control. I've got to do tactics. Holy smokes. That's a lot of things. At least Terry's only got 2 jobs, turn the handles and do tactics. But I think it's still cleaner on Ineos. You know, Giles does tactics. Parco and I'm drawing a blank on our other flight controller. They've got 2 flight controllers. They never change sides. There's always somebody doing flight control. Ben drives the boat. Great setup. Really great setup.
Well, speaking of setups, boat setups rather, not necessarily crew setups, our final topic tonight is the most obvious one where we left off a week and a half ago. American Magic. This was the bad news, that massive hull, that capsize. You saw the entire sailing world rally behind them. And Jack, here is the good news. Just a day ago, American Magic relaunched. It's amazing. In 11 days of 24-hour round-the-clock repairs, they have managed to put the boat back together. They put her back in the water and took the boat out sailing. And Jack, I think also what is really unique about the camaraderie, the sportsmanship of how this team came together is this. The Band-Aids, that graphic. Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, they got help from the other teams when they were in danger of sinking. They got big help from Emirates Team New Zealand to rebuild a carbon panel. Great sportsmanship. Really good to see. Now, the gloves come off again, and now they're going to go hammer and tongs with Luna Rossa. But, the shore crew, do you believe in miracles? The shore crew worked a miracle to get that boat back on the water.
Certainly
Great
do
job
now.
by them.
Certainly do now, for sure. Here's a look at the boat, the relaunch, the reboot of American Magic 2.0. There she was on the water sailing. All reports are that she's just as fast as she was before and just as structurally sound. You know, they didn't have a press conference before this next round, Jack, and I haven't seen a lot of people telling us what happened during the repair. So we had an exclusive interview with the Chief Operating Officer of American Magic, Rob Ouellette, who told us the behind-the-scenes story of putting Patriot back together. First of all, congratulations on getting Patriot back on the water in such short time. That must be a huge relief.
For sure. Felt like a long time with the amount of work that's gone on. But I've got nothing but amazing respect for all of our guys in the shed and the design office and across the team, shore team, sailors, for, chipping in and getting it done. It was a huge project, obviously. But also, obviously the electricians had a big part in it too, because the thing was underwater. So really happy to be back out there, and had a great day yesterday. And we'll get back out there in about 45 minutes today.
For those that can't see behind closed doors, just give us a quick description of what did it take from everyone involved. I know it was 24-hour shifts, and it wasn't just the entire team. There were others from the outside and even other teams helping, right?
It was a huge effort on all sides to get even the hull panel done. I mean, the hull panel itself took 6 days to make and cure. So, that came to us on Saturday of this past Saturday. So just getting it all installed after that was a full court press. But, the electronics in the boat had to be stripped and rebuilt. The power system in the boat had to be removed and rebuilt. So just to go out there yesterday and to be able to do some race laps was pretty awesome. It didn't, load-wise, that checked out just fine on all the new structure and all the new all the new hull parts, big new hull part. And then there was a couple other niggly ones, like we actually cut a couple holes in the deck when we were out in the water that had to be repaired. The foil arms had to be repaired. So all those things checked out yesterday, and we got a bit more breeze today. So we'll do a little bit more work to make sure they're all tickety-boo and be ready for racing tomorrow. We're confident that the boat's at the very least as good as when we capsized, but there are some changes that we made that were always in our plans that will hopefully make us better and even more competitive.
The last thing I want to ask you about is the human interest side of this story. All the eyes have been on you. All the eyes of the sailing world have been on you guys for the past week and a half since the capsize. When you rolled Patriot out of the shed, I have to say, perhaps the coolest tribute to sportsmanship and gratitude and public gratitude on behalf of the team is the Band-Aid graphic with the other team's flags and the thank you. What an amazing gesture. Whose idea was that, and what's the response been for that?
The response has been great, and it truly, with the Kiwi flag on top, it reflects not only the Team New Zealand help, but also, the local fire department, police department, Coast Guard that helped us out in the water that day, and honestly, the community in Auckland and in Wynyard Quarter here that's been so supportive over the past 10, 12 days. So the response has been great. The idea was hatched, obviously, when you see a big hole in the boat and you're gonna patch it, you're like, should we do stitches around it? Should we do what can we do that would look interesting and make sense? And I'm not 100% sure who started the idea of the Band-Aids, but for sure our communications department with Will, Brand, Martha, Stu, all had a hand in that. And then they pitched the idea a couple different ways to myself, Terry, and Dean, and we ended up getting there pretty quickly.
Well, it's so brilliant, and it encapsulates this whole experience in such a perfect way. You guys are at the top level of the sport of sailing. When you compare this moment to any other sport, seeing the competitors that want to beat you on the water first make sure that they do whatever they can to get you guys back on the water. Have you ever seen anything like that level of sportsmanship in any other sport?
I don't know that I have. But I think us as sailors, we're different because we all go offshore, and the closest help is the next guy in front of you, behind you. So I think there's a different sort of level of sportsmanship and camaraderie. It's a little bit different than if you're downhill skiing or swimming. So I think we all know what it's like to have a failure at sea, and we all know what it's like to be part of helping out another team.
Well, sometimes you're in the position of giving the help, and other times, in this case, of receiving it. But either way, it's heartwarming to see the response, and it's uplifting to see how quickly you guys have put Patriot back together again. All we want to say is congratulations and good luck.
Thanks, Tucker. Really appreciate it, and thanks for carrying on the message and covering this event.
So cool that Rob Ouellette took the time to do that with us. So amazing that the team was able to turn that boat back around. I couldn't see much difference at all in the hull, other than the Band-Aid on top. But the fact that they turned that around, and the systems and electronics, it's impressive. I tried to ask him what changes that they had made while the boat was down. He sort of dodged that question, but this photo here will give us an idea, actually. Look at the foil arms that extend from the boat down to the foils. The left one is different now from the right one. You can see in the left one there's a bit of a bump out in the trailing edge, and on the starboard side it's straight, which nobody's, I think, picked up on yet. Emirates Team New Zealand has a bit more of that trailing edge contour to it, so maybe there's something to that, and they're going to test it. But Jack, before we close, your thoughts. Who has the edge? Who will win this next series and go on to face Ineos Team UK in the Prada Cup Finals?
You know, it's a toss-up, but I'm not putting any money on this. But I'm going to say that I think that American Magic is going to take it. I think they've got the faster boat over the wider range of winds. They've got the most time on the water of any of the team, even with the days they lost this past week. I think they have the edge.
Well, I tend to agree with you. Let's see what our viewers think. Now, we're starting to get a lot more engagement on Facebook and on YouTube. Here is our internal poll from Facebook that we put out yesterday. 77% of you think American Magic will pull it off and move on to the Prada Cup Finals. I tend to agree as well, Jack. Only 23% are in favor of Luna Rossa. And, all things being equal, I think just having a mental reset from the losses they had in the early round robins could be just enough. In a funny way, the capsize could have been a benefit to sort of shake off the bad juju. We'll see. We certainly wish them good luck. We are fans and supporters of American Magic. So tonight we're going to see two races. Race 1, American Magic will be entering from the left side against obviously the Italians on starboard. Then they flip-flop for race 2. Tomorrow night, 2 more races. Sunday in New Zealand, Saturday here in the U.S., 2 more races, and then a final one on the 2nd of February, if needed. That is going to be broadcast a day early for us, obviously, here in the U.S. It's the first to win 7, best of, hold on a second, is that right? Yeah, first to win 7, best of 13, Jack? First to win 4, best of 7. Right, sorry, then when we get to the finals, against Ineos Team UK, it'll be best of 13, first to win 7. Jack, what's the breeze for tonight's race?
It should be pretty healthy wind.
Nice.
Ian Murray's going to be setting a course that has to deal with some shiftiness with that south wind out of the southwest, but there could be some muscular conditions.
And you mentioned the location of the race course today?
Well, Ian has set race courses B, C, and D are now sort of one big area, and Ian will align the course with the wind and give himself enough space to set it up so that he can shift the marks if he needs to. One thing to say is that all of the teams just have nothing but the greatest praise for Ian and the way he and his team are running the regatta. So B, C, and D, he wants to get it as close to land as he can, so that people on shore can see it. It'll be in there somewhere in that area.
Well, we'd like to second that. Ian Murray, the principal race officer, and his crew, great job. And Jack, that brings us to the close of our show and our traditional toast. I have a fresh Mount Gay, well, it was fresh, it might be a few sips down, Mount Gay rum drink, and I know you've got a Pellini coffee keeping you up late at night in Switzerland, right?
Yeah, I'm still working on it, but cheers.
Cheers. Here's to wishing American Magic luck in this next round. My favorite part. And that wraps up our show, folks. Once again, we hope you have enjoyed the Cup experience. We'd like to thank all the sponsors, of course, and we're going to broadcast one of these shows by 8 p.m. on every scheduled race day now throughout the end of the 36th America's Cup. We certainly hope you'll join us and tell your friends. To comment or join our mailing list, you can email us at tuckertlive@gmail.com, where you can also send us photos of you drinking Mount Gay or Pellini coffee in your watch parties. Like and follow and subscribe on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter at Tucker T Live, and on Instagram, Tucker Thompson 1. Also visit cupexperience.com and click on Ask Jack if you have a question that you want Jack to answer live in the show. You saw tonight he covered tactics. We've already received another question that we'll be putting together a package for in a future show, possibly tomorrow. So thank you to the viewers that are asking questions, and send us your photos, your comments. We want to hear from you. And that wraps up show number 5. The racing is set to begin tonight. I'm going to be watching, and I know you are as well. Thank you all for joining us, and keep with us for future Cup Experience shows. Once again, I'm Tucker Thompson for Mason Sheen, our producer-director, and also Jack Griffin in Switzerland tonight. Thanks for watching the Cup Experience.